It's terrible when I'm in a place for a week, I just talk too much. So we've got our plan for the week, and today's lesson is also from the Awareness for Movement book. And I won't ask people to, how many people have gone home and memorized the ATM book in preparation for the week. Why don't I believe you? You've got the cheekiest face. Hey? Yes. Yeah. You can see the 6-year-old girl, can't you? Sorry to tell you that thing. Were you cheeky as a 6-year-old? Oh dear. So this is the next lesson. I'm not going to do the necessarily sequentially because obviously we've got 5 days and there's 12 lessons in the book. So this is the next one. It's called coordinating practice extensions or something like that. And it's page 509. Reader. And I'm not going to give you a scan because just park this in the back of your brain. Don't spend the whole lesson thinking about what a scan could be. But the exercise today is, when you get into group 4, is that whoever's the teacher and the observer are going to come up with what you think is an appropriate scan for this lesson, having experienced it. So you know from last week talking with Doran about the way we use a scan to set up a sensory baseline so that people can come back to. So they're practicing firstly sensing something in the scan, then they're practicing remembering it, and they're practicing coming back to it. So they're practicing encoding it, they're practicing storing it, and they're practicing retrieving it, and then comparing it to make it function. And that is the learning cycle. That's the essential cycle of learning. Obviously, there's more to it than that. But that is the basis of learning. So you are going to experience the lesson, experience the changes without me setting you up with a specific set of notions, and decide what would be a useful guesstimate of what might change for people that might be useful for them to rescan at the beginning, the middle, and the end. That's to do. That creates anxiety. Just park the anxiety somewhere above your head on the floor, and I promise it's not over. So some of you'd be very familiar with this lesson. It is a ubiquitous lesson. So maybe you have scanned yourself, whatever you've noticed, what you've noticed. And now bend your knees up and bring your feet to standing. And take a moment to notice how that's changed the way you're lying on the floor, so that it's at least somewhat familiar to you. Now, just as an aside, if you're teaching this class to the public, you would spend some time at some point going through an exploration of how to find where your feet could be, to offer you the most stability, the most skeletal stability. Maybe we'll do this in the quiet period. Okay, so that's more fun. Back to the lesson. Cross your right leg over your left leg. And that might require a little adjustment of the left foot, but just so that you feel stable. And slowly begin to allow your knees to sink to the right and back to the middle. Continue that movement, just going to the right and back to the middle. And notice where that movement starts and how the movement changes. So there's kind of could you track the sequence of events? And that might be, you might start from the foot and notice how the weight shifts over the left foot. That's your point of contact now. And then you get to a certain point, and then what lifts off the floor next, and then what lifts off the floor next. So you could track the sequence of movement in terms of what lifts off the floor. So how does your contact change in terms of moving away from the floor, and or how your contact changes in terms of pushing more into the floor. So as you're going to the right, for most people, maybe the inside of your left foot is making more contact with the floor. Maybe the back of the right hip joint starts making more contact with the floor. What is it for you? And then how does that sequence of events manifest as a sort of a chain of movement from the foot, the back of the pelvis, to the lumbar spine, the back of the ribs, the shoulder blades on the right and the left, the back of the shoulders, the head. And that you can focus your attention on those sort of local areas, and also have in mind the whole picture, if you like, the whole sensory image. And then notice, do you sink your legs on the in-breath and bring them back on the out-breath? That's what you're doing. Do the opposite. Sink your legs on the out-breath and bring them back on the in-breath. By way of contrast, so that's the second way. So the in-breath down and the out-breath back, the out-breath down and the in-breath back. Another option is that the breathing and the turning of the legs have no relationship to each other. They are asynchronous. So a bit of jazz happening. Two different rhythms. And always, of course, you're noticing the quality of the movement. If there's any little, what I was saying before, little spikes in effort, or parts where you zoom through, or parts where you have to, feel like you have to put your foot down on the pedal more. And could you be interested in those areas and how they could become more even? Some of the tactics you might use are going slower, checking your breathing, monitoring somewhere else in you that might be holding. And leave it and rest with your legs on. And I haven't given you a scan, so there's now an uncomfortable pause where you have to do something. But here's the clue, is that when you're preparing a lesson, what is your experience that's changed? What kind of immediately becomes apparent to you that has changed? And would that be an interesting basis for the scan? How could you set that up? What you've noticed now. It takes a bit of courage to actually predict what a group might feel. Quietly bring your arms up towards the ceiling. Have your palms together. Your elbows are straight and your palms are together. And notice how that influences the way you contact the floor. I can't help myself. Come back from it. And relate. Now, there's a constraint here. This is so difficult to teach from a pedagogical point of view. This is a classic conforms to Larry's rule that a constraint has a triangle. So feel that triangle, sense the triangle, but the base of the triangle is across the back of your shoulders, and then your arms on the two sides. So it's an isosceles triangle. Now I did this one day and used a lot of geometric metaphors, completely pissed off 2/3 of the class. Did all pretty much failed geometry. So pick metaphors at your peril, right? Because by saying isosceles triangle, I've alienated people in the room who didn't like it. So it's an upside down ice cream cone. And that's probably a more palatable metaphor. And now take the tip of the ice cream cone a little bit to the left and back. And the constraint is that the elbows do not bend. So find a way that you can take both hands to the left and back to the middle without bending the elbows. Now watching you guys do this, so the hands go towards the ceiling. Towards the ceiling. And the elbows are straight. And so in the general, I have to say in the general public, they don't know how to pick up the right shoulder off the floor, and you're redoing it. Because a lot of people don't know they've got a shoulder dip. They don't know that their ribs can cross both the right. So you are all incredibly boring in doing it, and there's nothing for me to teach you. How tedious. What's my ego going to do? Anyway, you're sensing that's right. So you're just going to the middle and only to the left and back to the middle. That's it. And doing it many times. And begin to broaden your attention. So I've mentioned this idea that the right shoulder girdle picks up off the floor. So what happens to the left shoulder girdle? What happens to the back of the ribs? What happens in that area with them? And again, if you think about this movement as initiating a chain of events, a sequence, and you track that sequence of events from the kind of point of action, which is the obvious part, which is the rolling of the shoulders over, and the influence going up the chain. So what's the influence on your head? Does your head roll with it? Does it stay still? Where do your eyes go? And then how far down the chain does the influence of this roll happen? Down the spine, so the thoracic spine into the lumbar spine, pelvis, maybe the hips. And how far can you sense? And then again, add into your awareness an observation of the timing of your breath. So was your default to breathe in as you go to the left and breathe out as you come back in? And then try the opposite. So breathe out as you go to the left, breathe in as you come in. And then of course the third alternative, would be that your breathing, the rhythm of your breathing, the rhythm of the training are independent of each other. And because it's the ATM, of course, it's all done 25 times. And rest. Rest with your arms long by your side. If your pelvis or lower back or something is getting a bit tweaky because you're on your side, always on your back, you can change position. Check in, but look after yourself. And again, contemplate what you're noticing that may or may not have changed, that would be able to be tracked by a particular kind of scan. Bend your knees up and cross your right leg over your left. And a couple of times, for your satisfaction, check in on how that movement is going. What's the influence of the lesson so far on the right leg crossed over the left and sinking to the right only. So remembering what you noticed before, the original movement. Has it changed? Has it not changed? If it has changed, in what way? So that's our test movement. Let's come back to the middle. When you're in the middle, uncross your legs and cross the left leg over the right leg. And find that place where you really get a sense of the skeleton, the bones of the leg, the right leg in particular, being so well stacked that they can support you. And quietly, slowly, gently begin sinking your knees to the left. And it may be that you go as far as you can until the effort changes, when you come back to the middle. That might be, remember I talked about we're training awareness with something in mind. It's not just being aware, but we're being aware of effort. We're being aware of ease and comfort. And when does that change? So we're interested in that state of affairs. Not awareness for the sake of awareness. It's awareness with a barometer for ease. And paying as much attention to the outward journey as the journey home, which is home is the middle. Remembering the kinds of signposts you can look for, which is the change of contact with the floor, so the shifting under the various parts of you, and the influence of this movement up through the chain of your skeleton, up and down. All the way to the top of your head and your eyes. And then the other way to observe the other signpost that we use for effort is the breath. So you could be systematic in the way you observe and explore the influence of the breath. So that, the inhalation versus the exhalation and holding. You could sense the quality of the breath. And does it ever get compromised? Is that one of the signposts for effort? That there are certain parts where you hold your breath. But maybe when you get to the lowest point of the thinking movement, is that when there's a little tiny breath hold that initiates the bringing back of your knees, for example. and leave it and rest with your legs on. So this idea of a scan is really interesting. So I mentioned the Alexander Yanai ATM, which are called Alexander Yanai because it's street in Tel Aviv, where Moshe taught a regular ATM class. And he taught the same lesson a couple of times during the week and refined it and recorded it. And the International Feldenkrais Federation has transcribed these lessons for us to use. Now, there is almost no scans in these lessons because the students in these lessons were really experienced students. Some of them were even sort of disciples. So he just left it up to them to notice what they noticed. This is what we gather. And so it's not unusual. Now, for the general public who's not so experienced, we guide them with a prescribed scan. What you're thinking about. Bring your arms up to make a triangle again. The palms together, fingers pointing towards the ceiling. And gently begin the movement of letting the hands go to the right a little bit and back to the middle. And allow the movement to grow if that feels appropriate. Tracking the influence of the turning down through the chain of your skeleton. And then how the various parts of you lift off the floor, and you'll be very interested in how they come back to the floor. In what sequence they come back to the floor? Is it exactly the same, like the reverse sequence that they left the floor? So some other principles of Feldenkrais, other ways of checking, apart from going slow, is to check is a movement reversible? Could you stop at any time and reverse the direction? Meaning that you are in control of the movement all the time. You're not ballistic, using momentum or inertia at any point. And have you spontaneously noticed the breath, or did you need the reminder to observe the influence of the breath? And leave it and rest. And observe what you observe. Free range observing. Free range scan. Bend your knees across your left leg over the right, and several times, your curiosity and satisfaction allow your knees to sink to the left, and notice if the turning of the upper body has had an influence on the turning of the legs in the opposite direction. So the left leg crossed over the right, the other left leg, that's it. Left leg over the right. And going to the left, coming back to the middle. And leave that. Uncross your legs and cross the right leg over there. And allow your knees to sink to the right and let them stay there. Wherever they go comfortably to the right, let them stay there. Interlace your fingers and put them behind your head. And with your knees at this place where you're willing to leave them, somewhere to the right of you, there, now lift your head a little bit, using your elbows up off the floor, and lift your head a bit straight up. You just want to look down the length. And so how high you lift your head is up to you, given the principles that we have all agreed to, that you are not going to compromise the effort. You will notice the influence of the breath. So you might want to be systematic and try lifting your head on the in-breath, lifting your head on the out-breath, head on the held breath. What is useful? Rest a moment, just uncross your knees and keep your knees up for a moment. Take your hands out for a moment. Make sure that everything, you haven't compromised anything. It's just a very quick unwinding. Come back into that position. So the right leg's crossed over the leg, left. So interlace your fingers the opposite way. Again, if you're teaching this as a public lesson, that in itself will become a bit of an exploration. You, right, yeah. Interlace the other, whatever. Allow your knees to sink to the right. And is your awareness sensitive enough to pick up any difference? Lifting your head with the fingers interlaced the other way. This is really subtle. We throw away this line, like sense the difference, as if it's, it's obvious what the difference is. Actually, it's a really subtle difference for a lot of people. You could actually spend a whole ATM, becoming discerning about just that little thing. Leave it. Bring your legs back to the middle. Cross your legs the other way, so the left leg goes over the right leg. Left leg over the right leg. Oh, okay. You adjust. Yeah. And sink your knees to the left. You have to, I can't sort out your left and right for you. In the wilderness. Your left leg is over your right leg, and your hands are interlaced behind your head. Sink your knees to the left to a place where it's comfortable. Stay. And again, go ahead and lift your head slowly, bringing your elbows forward and feeling the lovely, delicious way that you can lift your head, how you can kind of slowly peel vertebrae away from the floor bit by bit. It's not like your neck vertebrae touch the floor, but they move away from the floor. If you kind of pick them up bit by bit, chain by chain, link by link. And it's a pretty straight movement. It's not, it doesn't take you into a roll. Yeah. So your knees are already to the left and they stay there, but your head lifts pretty much straight from the floor, symmetrically from the floor. That's it. Slowly, slowly. And again, is it the in-breath that's your habit, the out-breath, for any breath, for any outy breath? And leave it and rest everything long. And again, notice what you notice. That might make you modify or rethink the scan, or maybe not, confirm it. Bend your knees. And a few times with your hands interlaced your habitual way, lift your head behind your head, lift your head a few times, just with your legs symmetrical, and notice the difference with your legs symmetrical. A few times to sense for yourself the influence of this lifting down the chain of your skeleton. And then leave that, bring your hands away from your head and put your left hand around underneath your right armpit in the direction of your right shoulder blade. And then the right arm over the top, find the left shoulder blade. And begin this very gentle kind of movement where your left hand picks up your right shoulder girdle away from the floor. You rock a little bit to the left. And then the hand allows the shoulder girdle to come back to the floor, gravity. And then the right hand picks up the left shoulder girdle and takes it away from the floor. So you begin this very gentle rocking motion of the upper body, initiated by the pull of the opposite arm. So starting off slowly, you can feel it's like you're peeling the opposite shoulder girdle away from the floor, rolling more onto the ribs on the other side. Gradually increase the momentum, increase the speed. So there's a little kind of gentle lift, and then you fall back, and then the momentum will carry you over to the other side. So you can use momentum. So we're not anti-momentum. And the movement can become kind of faster, but it's still precise. So how can you slowly increase the speed and maintain the precision? There's no speed accuracy trade-off here. And then notice as you continue to rock and roll, does your head go with your chest? Now, there's not an injunction here to keep your knees still, but neither is there an injunction for your knees to initiate the movement. So if your knees move, just make sure it's only as a result of the upper body and only a tiny bit, therefore. So if I'm looking at the amplitude and your knees are moving as far as your elbows, then they're actually aiding and abetting. They're not as a result of. You'll see this when you keep what I'm talking about. Okay, so there's an opportunity so your head can go with the movement, right? So explore that idea that your head is free to go. So for some people who are holding their head still, that's a revolution to let their head go. People whose head was already going with the chest, this is like a no-brainer. Now another alternate is that your head stays still. So you continue to rock and roll your chest left and right, and you purposefully, with awareness, keep your head still. You might want to use your, you fix your eyes and you fix your nose towards the ceiling and it does not deviate. This is such a cool lesson because it's got so many of the classic Selby tactics to talk about. And yeah. And rest for a moment, lift with your arms long, just rest the ball. Keep your knees up if you want to. It's only a tiny pause. Cross your arms over your chest the other way. So the right arm goes first to find the left shoulder blade, and then the left arm goes over the top to find the right shoulder blade. Knees bent. And begin again this slow, gentle idea of picking up one shoulder girdle that shifts the weight onto the other one. And then letting that lower back into the floor and picking up the other shoulder girdle, move the weight to the other side. Slowly, slowly start increasing the speed of the movement with your arms in a different configuration, organization, slightly. And again, establish, is your head going with the movement, staying still? Try both. Maybe you need to slow the movement down to do that. Remember, slowness allows our awareness to track. And then the third alternative in this exploration is that the head and the eyes go opposite the rolling chest. Now, interestingly, I'll just tell you this, for most people, your knees have all got much quieter. Really interesting. The knees are going all over the place for an almost pure person. Your knees are now pretty much. So this process of differentiation, you can talk to Monday, talk about why that might have happened. So your head's going opposite to the arm for a few times. Rest for a moment. Bend your knees again. And again, with this idea of curiosity of seeing how that is, just hug yourself in whichever way you like, so that whichever arm's on top doesn't matter for now. And allow your chest to pick up the one side of your chest, weight the other, and roll in a way that feels pleasant and there's no constraints. So you can do whatever you like with your head. But just that is an exploration of the ease of this movement. It feels satisfying. A couple of times to be satisfied. The breath can be uninterrupted. Leave your arms long. And cross your right knee over your left knee. So this is the original chest movement. And again, with a sense of curiosity, notice how this movement is now as you sink your knees to the right. And what's the influence of these, the twists of the upper body on the ability to twist the lower body? Back a few times for your satisfaction. And then cross over the leg. And take your knees to the left. The left leg cross over the right. And again, for your satisfaction, noticing the influence of the previous movements on this, on the breath, on the ease, the influence of the sequence up through the skeleton. Leave it and rest. Arms and legs long. The final rest. Your final resting place. Before coffee. Final resting place before coffee to qualify. And again, you've been thinking about this, what kind of scan would be useful. Second for the last time, and refine your decision about what might be useful as a simple attention directing device if you were going to teach this lesson later in the day. People who taught yesterday going, ha, I don't have to make that. So do you know that I might just say, now the people who taught yesterday don't teach them today. Slowly roll over, come up by way of one of your sides, quote Larry. And slowly come up to standing. Now, I often use a variation of this ATM as an FI with people, and it changes tonus quite dramatically in some people. So people can be quite lightheaded after this. Blood pressure can really drop. So you guys can spring up like springboks. But the general public, you might just need to pace them slowly. And notice the influence of these twisting movements on your standing. Where's your weight on your feet? Where are your eyes? Would you like to run play tennis now? Start look behind you to see if someone else is playing tennis. You could also think about what this lesson might be good for. What would you say to your class after this lesson that you'd like them to continue to notice? Notice how you reach for the seatbelt when you get in the car. Notice how you get into the seat of the car. What functions would they be able to take this awareness, this ability? You know, there's an obvious, any function with a twist in it would be kind of the obvious. But what else springs to your mind that you could future pace them into, that they could practice the awareness that they've gained on the floor you could bring into some kind of integrated way into a function. So, you know, you'll look like you put up some tape on your maybe we're Melbourne 40 ball season. What is it? Is, you know, swimming? I don't know. What do you know? What emerges out of your system? Kayaking. There you go. Yep. Cross country skiing. Yep. What else? Reaching the toilet. Flush. Toilet paper. Yep. Actually, even wiping your bum. Yeah. Yeah. Behind you. Yeah. 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 What else? Opening the fridge. Yeah. Pulling back. Yeah. Reaching forward. Reaching back. So, putting socks on. Yeah. Boxing. So this is what you know how you would end lessons. With we're jumping around a bit in terms of the ATM, but this is not. It is yes, people can come, they can do the ATM, they can feel good, they can go home. Having a massage, that's fine. However, if we're really true about we're about learning and we're about taking this into our real life, then this is a really concrete way to pace people into. Okay, so what do you notice? What have you noticed on the floor? Well, I've noticed actually now this is moving. Like my sternum is moving, sliding left and right. Okay, so notice that when you're kayaking or whatever. So you pace them into something. Okay. So pace into going to the toilet and reaching behind for the toilet, okay? Or reaching forward to get the milk out of the fridge, or 11 o'clock. So 20 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that.